So this is our approach to that. German role, well, I mean, how do you get a conflict that has been somewhat in the backwaters of the international politics? How do you get that back on the agenda? Being Germany, you can do it by actually bringing it up in your debates with Russia, by actually having something like the Meseberg Memorandum and lending thus some impetus to these debates, putting your weight, actually the Chancellor actually has put her weight behind this, and that I think is the contribution that Germany, always having had a special interest for our eastern neighborhood, that's what we can bring to this process. We also bring to this process a special relationship with Russia. It sometimes earns us some mistrust, but we can live with that. We are confident that we can actually work on the basis of this good relationship in order then to also bring some of the issues which we attach importance to closer to a good end. And that's what we will continue to do. Now, let me also address for a moment you also asked what's the place for the Georgian-Russian issue within the German efforts, and let me say that of course, I mean, our assessment is that we need to do one step at a time, but in all our talks with the Russian side, of course, also the unresolved and from our point of view a very burning issue of the Georgian conflicts, of the conflicts in the South Caucasus, they are being discussed, they are being mentioned. However, at this point in time, it's if I should describe that, it's more that we give our position, which is well known. We support territorial integrity of Georgia within its internationally recognized borders, including Abkhazia and South Ossetia. We want to see a solution in that direction. We, of course, are fully behind the EU policy, non-recognition and engagement, and coming with a German background, we well appreciate the value of engagement with a long-term view, keeping the contacts alive, allowing people from the two sides of these dividing lines to engage, to know each other, to travel, and then keep the door open for a future solution, in some years to come. I think that's the task really of today, and we bring to this, of course, also our German experience, although you cannot really transfer it, but certainly the kind of input we can make, we try to make. Last point. Germany welcomed very much the Turkish-Armenian protocols, and I fully agree with Peter, temporarily suspended. We hope that it will be possible in the future to actually achieve this step, that the border can be opened and that there can be normal neighborhood in the South Caucasus between Turkey and Armenia. And last but not least, let's also say that yes, the snipers should be removed. The question is, how can you get everyone to agree to this? And in that regard, of course, the Minsk group has the primary responsibility. And although Germany has quite some weight, but we also, we keep the responsibility where it is. It's with the Minsk group at this point. Thank you.
What can we do to make a consensus possible on the Georgia conflicts? This is not going to happen in the immediate future, obviously. We need to work with a long-term perspective. The fact that this conflict is a conflict at different levels, as I mentioned, gives us some possibilities of having an impact gradually, and the non-recognition and engagement policy that serves to rebuild links, to give a European footprint in the conflict regions, I believe will be crucial in this regard. Also, I think one should not exclude the possibility that from the Russian point of view, the presence as it looks now in Abkhazia and South Ossetia may even turn out in the longer perspective to the balance of the pros and cons may actually turn out to be a negative one, that it may be a burden, and we just have to find an elegant way of helping Russia to get out of the predicament. As far as the EU role is concerned in encouraging a Georgian-Russian dialogue, well, fundamentally, this dialogue needs to take place between Georgia and Russia. What we can do is to help create conditions for such a dialogue. And I mentioned, for example, by maintaining a firm line on certain principles, we can reassure the Georgian side that they are not entering into dangerous territory. I still think we are quite some way, and this relates to the previous question, when we can have a full Georgian-Russian dialogue across the board on all the open issues. We should also remember that we have a forum where Georgian and Russian representatives are regularly meeting, and that is the Geneva talks, and where also representatives of the de facto authorities from Abkhazia and South Ossetia are present. And there is indeed a few things being discussed there already at the side of the formal meetings. So this can also be a kind of EU contribution to provide a venue. On Karabakh and the ceasefire, the snipers absolutely have to be withdrawn. You mentioned a lack of attention, and I agree in general terms that there is too little attention to the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict in the European Union and the dangers that this conflict poses. I would argue that things are more worrying than they were some time ago. The conflict does not exist in a vacuum. There are things happening around it all the time that changes the balance with one or the other party feeling a need to compensate for a perceived disadvantage and so on. And all of this contributing to a lowering of the threshold for violent action. And this is something that we need to put on the radar screen of the policymakers in the EU as well, by raising awareness of the dangers. And that will then, I believe, lead ultimately to a stronger, more attentive European policy to this issue.